on, guys? Welcome back into the channel. In today's video, we're going to be discussing a helpful tip for keeping new signings off of your 40-man roster and preventing them from signing directly to the MLB level. One of the things that I hate about the way that the system operates within this game is that players that have a certain amount of service time are going to pretty much get signed directly to your MLB roster if there is an open spot for them. And so that kind of gets to the heart of the solution, which is making sure that your roster is filled. That way they can't be signed to the MLB level. Another thing is that it can be really helpful to sign some of these free agents that are, higher overall, that might sit in free agency. They could help your farm system succeed and get more wins, which in turn helps your overall player development in your farm system, or have those players sitting in your farm system ready to be used in case of injury need or any type of need based off of a trade or a move or anything like that. So it can be really useful to be able to sign free agents without having them go directly to your MLB roster. I know a lot of the time I end up getting to the regular season and I'm trying to still fill out kind of the very bottom end of my farm system. And sometimes that involves maybe moving a couple of players down and having to sign some, mid-60s players to go into my AAA or AA system. And a lot of times you'll end up signing some of these guys. Like, let's say I wanted to get Johnny Valenzuela, for example, 2767. He's probably going to sign directly to my MLB roster instead of signing to my minor league system. And this is a problem that happens more often than not, like I said, at the beginning of a season when I'm trying to shuffle things around and there are open spots within my system. And so what you can do to prevent that is make sure that you have 26 out of 26 players at the MLB level. So as you guys will see here, I'm going to go ahead and even just sign a top end player from free agency. And so you guys can see that we can sign JD Martinez if our roster is completely filled, and he's going to go to the highest available spot in the system. So in this case, I released a AA player, and so he took on the highest rated spot, which was AA. If MLB, AAA, and AA are all completely filled, then he's going to get signed to the single A system. That's incredibly useful to know and to be able to work with whenever you're managing your roster. What ends up happening a lot of the times is you end up with players getting signed directly to the MLB roster and directly to your 40-man roster, which can create quite a few complications. So let's say I just opened up a couple of roster spots here because I'm not totally sure on who all is going to be up at the major league level yet. Let's say for some reason I wanted to sign Edwin Rios specifically to the team. Whenever I offer him a contract and get him in on the roster, he is going to be put at the MLB level automatically. Even though he's a 67, he's a D potential, he's worse than my other players at that position. Because I had that open as my highest open spot in the organization, he's going to go directly to the MLB level and he's going to be added to the 40-man roster. So that creates a lot of complications with roster management. So again, you can leverage this in a couple of different ways by making sure that your 26-man and even possibly your 40-man roster are full. That will allow players to get put into the minor leagues. Now, I don't recommend normally always having your 40-man roster full because you want to generally keep players off the 40-man roster as long as possible. So you don't necessarily want to fill that up, but filling up your major league roster is going to prevent guys from getting signed directly there. And, you can utilize the strategy to get solid players. I know that in free agency all the time, Jordan Montgomery is out there in every franchise that I do. He never gets signed through the first season. And so it could be helpful to just let him sit there, whether it be in AAA, whether it be in AA or single A. Just let him hang around until you have a need for him, or let him bolster your minor league system so that they have more success and they develop quicker because they're playing well. And then one of the other things that is worth considering is that some of these players that you could potentially sign to your roster, like JD Martinez, for example, and a lot of these free agents are going to be veteran players. They're going to be up there in age and they're going to be up there in service time, and so they're going to be regressing, especially in free agency. Players regress really hard when they sit out there in free agency. They will regress a little bit less hard if they're sitting in your organization. Now, again, it depends on where they're at in your organization, whether they're playing or not, and those types of things, but you could keep Jordan Montgomery in there at a reasonable overall throughout the season, you might never need him, but you might need him at some point. Whereas if you leave him sit out here in free agency, he's going to drop really quickly. He's going to drop into the mid 70s, maybe even lower than that. And then by the time you need him, he's going to be significantly less useful. So it is better to keep them in your organization, even if it's just at the single A level, and hope that they're not going to regress as quickly as they would out there in free agency. I don't know, you could kind of go either way with it. You could look at it as a little bit cheesy for some of these higher overall players. But one of the things that I just hate the most is whenever I'm just trying to fill out my roster, whether it be the beginning of the season or whatever, and I'm just trying to sign a couple of guys, mid-tier guys, and they just automatically get put onto my 40-man roster. Either I then have to go reload a save, or I'm stuck trying to trade them because they screwed up my 40-man roster plans, and now I have to do a whole lot of extra legwork. And so that leads me to kind of my final point here with this is make sure that you guys are saving before you do anything. So that JD Martinez thing, or Jordan Montgomery, whoever you're trying to sign to your roster, just try to save beforehand, especially if you're new to roster management or if you're new to doing this type of thing, to make sure that they get signed to the minors instead of signed to the majors and signed to your 40-man roster. Make sure you just do a little save. And all you need to do is go to the top right hand corner in order to do a save. You just go to file management and save. It's real quick, real easy. Just make sure that you're getting those saves in ahead of time. That way you save yourself the trouble of having to do extra legwork or having to reset to a much further back save because you messed up a move or something like that. Trust me, I've gone through it so many times now that I just save constantly. I save before and after like everything that I do in franchise mode, and even still sometimes I forget to do it and I'll end up messing up a move. And like I said, sometimes it happens to me still where I'll sign one of these mid-tier guys. They get put on my 40-man roster. I don't want them on my 40-man roster. Now I don't have space for a guy that I did want on my 40-man roster, and so now I got to go and trade this guy away, and he can't be traded immediately because he just got signed through free agency. So now I got to go trade somebody else away, and then I got to remember to trade this guy away later on because I don't want him on my 40-man roster. So it just opens up a whole can of worms that you just don't want to deal with. So being aware of how you can prevent players from getting added to the 40-man roster automatically, getting signed to the MLB roster automatically, is a really, really valuable skill to know. And so with that being said, I'm curious to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Have you guys ever experienced it where you're signing players and they get accidentally signed to your major league level and it creates extra work for you? Are you guys in the habit of saving constantly in this game? Because I have kind of hounded that on people for a long time, and I have had so many mess ups where I have just gone to the point where I know I have to save constantly. I'm just curious to hear your guys' thoughts. Are there any other strategies that you guys utilize in terms of, in-season free agency and those types of things in order to leverage your roster and whatnot? I'm just curious to hear it in the comment section below. Please leave a like. Like I said, leave a comment below as well. Subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. And as always, I'll see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a good one.